special music, but I also want to thank Dr. Miller for forgetting John Moffat's name and Paul Scowcroft's name. Makes me feel much better if I forget something. A number of years ago, somebody passed me in church and they said, "Hello, Wayne." And I wanted very much to respond with their name, but I had a brain freeze. I couldn't remember their name. This was somebody that was a good friend. Somebody that we had had dinner at our home, and we had had dinner in their home. But what's most notable about this is his name was Wayne. And I couldn't remember it. My sermon is not about memory, but I want to start with prayer. Dear Lord, my prayer is simple. May everything that I do and say give honor and glory to your name. Amen. Now again, my sermon is not about memory, but a number of years ago, I was listening to a documentary on television, and they were talking to people that have extraordinary memories, ordinary people. There were some TV celebrities that had this extraordinary gift. I don't remember their names. They had the ability, if you gave them a date, say June 6, 1984, they could tell you what day of the week it was. Whether it was a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, whatever. But much more than that, they could tell you what they did on that day. Just the way you or I would remember what we did yesterday or last week. Now, I don't know how many of you have that ability, but I want to ask a question, and I've asked Miguel to have some people with some microphones. How many of you remember what you were doing on the morning of January 13, 2018? 1, 2, 3, 4. I know a lot more people remember than that. Do you remember what you did the day before? January 12th? Oh boy, she's got the gift. I've asked Miguel if he can show the first slide. Getting ready for church. It was a Sabbath morning. Was there anything unusual about this Sabbath morning that you remember? How many of you saw this message on your phones? Raise your hand high, please. I really want to know. How many of you saw that message? Oh, quite a few of you. Now I've asked the PA people to have some microphones. And I want some of you to tell us, if you're willing, please, what was your first thought? What was the first thing that came to your mind?
I have to say this because it's funny. I slept through the whole thing. was picked up by Ella. And after it was all over, when she picked me up, she told me what happened. So I had slept through it.
Slept through it. Okay.
I just think that's a funny
All
one.
right, well. Anyone else? What was your first thought when you saw that message?
Morning, like I said, that morning I was getting ready to go to church that morning. I wasn't feeling too good because I have an operation coming up. And I saw the alert going on and off, and the first thing I was like, not today. You know, should I move? Because I just moved in Waikiki, and they said Waikiki, if anything. So I hear cars running up, guys running, getting crazy. So the first thing I did, I dialed the phone and I called a friend of mine who was in the military, because I'm also military. And he's the higher up, and he said, nothing is going on. So I checked first and I decided to pray for a little bit. That's what I did.
Anyone else willing to share with us what your first thought was when you saw that message?
A friend of mine had called me to tell me about the news, and I decided the safest place to be would be in church.
Safest place to be was be in church.
I thought about, where's my wife?
Where's my wife?
I looked at it as fake news when I heard it.
I was like, well, it's been a good run. And then Jerry called me, my friend Jerry called me to see if I was okay. And then I called Jessica and I was like, hey, did you know we almost died today? She didn't receive the alarm.
Speaking about the dear leader, my first thought was, how dare he? And then I went and found Mark, and one of his first thoughts was, he's not that stupid. So,
Let me ask this question. Were any of you afraid? Raise your hand. I heard on the news a couple of days ago that someone is actually wanting to send around a survey in the mail or some form or another to ask people what they did when they saw this message. Did any of you get in your cars and try to drive to a shelter, someplace of shelter? Anyone? One person. Where did you try to drive to? Get closer to the mountains. Okay? Did anyone try to hide under your bed or in the bathtub? Nobody tried that. How many of you called a family member or a friend to tell them that you loved them? Raise your hands. I see only 2 hands, 3 hands. I've got to tell you, when I first saw this message, like a few of you, I thought it was some kind of a joke. I thought, my first reaction, I was studying the Sabbath school lesson in the morning, which they said 8:07. My phone was on the desk next to me, and I heard it go ding. Quite often I will ignore it, but for some reason I looked at it and I saw this message, and I thought, somebody's hacked into my phone. This has got to be a joke. But I knew I needed to verify what I was seeing, so I listened. I listened for sirens. That was what I had been trained or had been told to expect if something like this was going to happen. But I didn't hear anything. The next thing I did was I turned on the television. And I expected to see all kinds of messages if this was for real. You know, I saw a baseball game. And then I turned turn the channel, and it was something else, and it was something else. I didn't even see the little ticker tape thing on the bottom or the top of the screen, warning us of an impending disaster. So I ignored it. It was life as usual. But I did for a moment think about telling my wife. But I walked into the bedroom and I looked at her and she was sound asleep. And I've got to tell you, I looked and I stood there for a minute. She doesn't remember any of this. I stood there for a minute and decided it was better to just let her sleep. Now, later in the day, she did tell me, if this ever happens again, if this ever happens again, heaven forbid, I'm supposed to wake her up. She wants to know about it so that we can pray together. Now, I did hear one person here at least say that their first reaction and one of the things that they did when they saw this message was that they didn't pray. I would really like to see this survey that gets sent around. And I would like to see if that's even one of the questions that they ask. How many people prayed when they saw this message? Truly, it wasn't until I got to church and I heard a few other people mentioning this that I realized that I was not the only one whose phone had been hacked into. And it wasn't until that night that I listened to the news that I realized the amount of panic that was taking off out there in the city. When I looked down the street from our house, I didn't see anything. But do you remember seeing the pictures on the news, pictures of people? I thought at first it was University of Hawaii. It could have been actually many places. People, maybe 50 or more people running down the sidewalk, all in one direction. How many of you saw the picture of the man who was lowering his children into the storm drain? They've showed that picture many times. Actually, I think probably he had the best plan of all, as long as it wasn't raining. Flash floods and storm drains can happen, so it's not necessarily a good thing. I'm surprised that we didn't hear news of more people dying in things like car crashes. You know, I did hear one story of somebody who died of a heart attack. Now, whether it was related to this or not, nobody really knows. Fear can be a powerful emotion. You might think that people, when the danger had passed, you think that their first reaction would be that they were happy, that they would want to go out and they would want to celebrate, and they would be grateful that this was all a bad mistake. I was surprised when I heard that the person who we call the button pusher, when they said that he was receiving death threats. What was that all about? For months prior to this missile alert, people were talking about how they would prepare for a nuclear missile attack from North Korea. How many of you made plans of what you would do if you knew a missile was headed for Hawaii? Had any of you made plans? 2 of you? Would you be willing to share, if you've still got the microphones there, what your plan was? I want to know.
I think Enrico is here somewhere. Okay, so our plan was, whatever happens, if we were in the building that we're in now, we would get in the staircases and go down. If we happen to be at work or somewhere else, we have an agreed upon meet-up place that if either of us survived, we would go to and we would meet up. So that was the essence of our plan, and then we had some other things about water, and food, and things like that, which would pertain if we survived.
You mentioned it depended on where you were. Okay.
Yeah, I would, and she works downtown. So there's no way that we could meet each other in a short period of time, but if one of us was to survive or both of us to survive, we knew we would meet.
I wonder, how many people have looked online or investigated what it would take to build a bomb shelter in their backyard? The flaw in that plan is, if you build a bomb shelter in your backyard, you're going to have to stay home for the rest of your life. It's a lot of money to spend on something that you're never going to use. But talking about something, as we say, we talked about what would happen if there was a nuclear attack in Hawaii. And actually facing the reality are two different things. A few weeks after I graduated from PUC, it was 1975. Although I'm afraid of heights, I talked some of my friends into going down to a nearby airport and going skydiving. Has anybody here ever tried that? You? Graduating from, what year would that be? No, do I dare ask? In the 1990s? Okay. This was 1975 for me. You know, in the preparation for making this jump, none of us had ever done it before. And by the way, none of us ever did it again. In making the preparation for this jump, we all joked about how scared we would be when we did this. They had us hang by straps from this tower and showed us how to use the emergency parachute. This is different than they do it today. Now they do it tandem, where you're actually tied to the instructor and the instructor has to go with you. Here they just pushed you out the door. They tied the ripcord to the airplane so it would open automatically. There wasn't really a whole lot you had to do. But one thing they said was that we were to count 1,000. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. If the parachute didn't work, we would be lucky if we got to 19. But when we got to 5,000, they told us that the parachute should be opened, and we were to look up and see if the parachute had opened properly. If it had ropes tied around it, or if it was just, you know, like a bed sheet or something, we were to jettison that parachute and open our emergency chute. Now, why am I telling you this story? When we got on the ground, all three of us were talking about our experience. And one thing that we all had in common was that not a single one of us remembered to count. Not a single one of us. All that training that they did, they kept going over and over and over this. Not a single one of us remembered to count. And one of my good friends said he never even remembered to look up to see if the parachute had opened. How many of you remembered to pray when you saw that message? There's a lot of people here, very few hands. I know, like I said, some of us, we didn't even wake up our wives. Years ago, somebody here said that they came to church. This was the place to be in the time of an emergency. It was maybe in the last 10 years, maybe a little a tsunami warning in Hawaii, and it was on the Sabbath morning. Do you remember that? Of course, Julia remembers that. Nobody knew what was going to happen or the extent of it. But it was on Sabbath morning, and they actually canceled church. Here, a Japanese church. Now, we're kind of up on a hill here. I think we're fairly safe. But they were worried about the people that would have to come from their homes and things like this. And so they canceled church. They got the phone tree going and sent out the message, it's a tsunami, don't come to church. I came to church anyway. And there was probably maybe a dozen people that came to church. Everybody else stayed home. Do any of you remember that? Were you one of those dozen people, Julia? No. Were you? And we got up here in a circle and we prayed. That was all we did. There was no sermon, there was no song service, there was no... All I remember was we got in a circle and we prayed. And the thing that I remember most about that experience was that while we were praying, the sirens were going off outside. What we call the air raid sirens, the tsunami warning sirens, the sirens that go off the first Monday of every month. The sirens were ringing as we were praying. It was a very emotional experience for me. I'm glad that I came to church and wouldn't want to miss that for anything. But what I want to tell you about is an experience that I had. It was probably the year 1 or 2 BC. Now, BC for me means before century. And my wife and I have been married for almost 35 years now, so we're talking about 36, 37 years ago. I was out at Camp Waianae. I don't know if it was a school group or if it was a church group or what, but I remember that this group of people, we were all sitting on the lawn out there at Camp Waianae. You know the lawn I'm talking about? Want to exercise your hands again? The big lawn out there. Okay? I was sitting out there on the lawn and listening to this Vesper speaker. I don't know who it was. I don't remember that. And I don't remember what they were talking about. But I remember I was sitting on the lawn and I was expecting it to rain. It was at night. The clouds were very, very dark. And as I expected, after a few minutes, I felt a drop on my nose. And I looked up. Like, what are you going to do about it? I looked up, but something caught my eye. There was a light shining through the clouds. Now, that's not unusual. My first thought was, well, maybe it's an airplane. And then I thought about it for a moment. And I realized I knew enough about the traffic patterns of airplanes that this wasn't an airplane. And I didn't hear the sound of any helicopter, so I knew that it wasn't a helicopter. So my mind drifted away, and a few minutes later I felt another drop on my nose, and I looked up. And for several minutes I watched this light come and go. And then all of a sudden, the sky opened up, and there was the brightest light I ever saw, and I knew instantly what it was. This was the second coming of Jesus. Jesus was here. Jesus had come to take us home. I'm glad you're not laughing. That I beheld. Oh, how dark this world looked. To me, I wept when I found myself here, and I felt homesick. I have seen a better world, and it has spoiled this one for me. I truly was disappointed when I realized that it was just the moon, and there wasn't Jesus coming. Our name as a group is Honolulu Japanese Seventh-day Adventist Church. I was over at Castle Hospital several times in the last week, and it always got my attention when I walked in and I saw the name on the doormat.